You're back with us on America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
And I'm John Bachman. Let's take a look at that very controversial Senate Intelligence Committee report. The Senate Intelligence Committee has just voted to declassify part of a report that details the interrogation and detention methods used by the CIA on terror suspects in the aftermath of September 11th. The report was written by the Intelligence Committee's Democratic staff, and it did not include direct interviews of CIA officials or Bush administration officials. Senator Richard Burr, one of the senior voices in this committee of North Carolina, has called this report flawed and biased. Joining us right now to discuss this is former Congressman Pete Hoekstra, also the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Pete, it's always great to talk to you.
Hey, good, thank you. Good to be with you.
Well, Pete, look, having both served in Congress, we both certainly understand the constitutional obligation of oversight that the legislative branch has. But when you take a look at what has gone on with the Senate majority staff, the Democratic staff, dealing with this issue of what went on in terms of interrogation, and you find out they haven't even interviewed some of the relevant people in this report, what's the bottom line on this thing? Legitimate oversight or a political power play?
It's really a political power play. And this started way back in 2004 when I was chairman of the Intelligence Committee in the House side. The Democrats started making hay on renditions, enhanced interrogations, black sites. This stuff just kind of started leaking out to the press. I don't know where it came from. I have my suspicions, but the thing that everybody, the convenient thing that everybody forgets, the inconvenient truth, is that all of these programs were signed off by Republicans and Democrats, leadership in the House and the Senate. And, yeah, everybody knew that they would be controversial. We were coming out of we were in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. We didn't understand our enemy. We didn't know what else they were going to do. We didn't understand their capabilities. And for 10 years, they've tried to hang this around the president, President Bush. For 10 years, they've tried to hang this around the neck of Republicans. But the bottom line is people like Nancy Pelosi signed off on this. They could have done a legitimate hearing on this, a legitimate investigation to determine if enhanced interrogations work and whether they should be used again in the future, but they decided to take the partisan route. That's the wrong thing to do.
So, Pete, in the Senate, you have that highly partisan situation with the Senate Democrat staff driving this whole report. Republicans obviously say, oh, look, you've got a foregone conclusion in 2 words, blame Bush. No, thank you, we're not going to go along with that. But let me pivot back to what went on earlier this week in the House, where there is supposed to be that bipartisanship and where we saw the former deputy director of the CIA come in. And Pete, in my estimation, the CIA turned into CYA for that guy. Now that we've had a couple of days to digest what went on in that rare public hearing in the House, what is our takeaway from that? Another political stunt?
No, I mean, legitimate oversight on Benghazi has to happen. I wish it could happen in a bipartisan way. The Democrats have dug in on this. But the difference here is Republicans never signed off on anything that the Obama administration talked about Benghazi and the immediate aftermath. What we saw earlier this week with Mike Morrell was absolutely disgusting. The first thing that not many people have asked the question, why in the world would the House Intelligence Committee, the ranking member on that committee, Dutch Ruppersberger, why would the House be asking for talking points from the CIA? That's not what the CIA does. You and I, J.D., we never asked for talking points from the executive branch departments about what we could say and what we couldn't say or what we should say. CIA gives you their best analysis. They tell you what's classified, and what is not, and you move forward from that. The second thing is Mike Morrell, the former acting director of the CIA, he threw our operators, the guys the men and women on the front lines who are risking their lives every day, he threw them under the bus and said, when we're in crisis, we're not going to believe the people who are on the ground, who are in the vicinity, who know the players. we're going to rely on our desk jockeys back here in Washington to tell us what's going on. Unbelievable.
So now what we have, this mindset from the Obama administration and those who may have departed but are working for people with strong connections to the Democrat Party, basically when it comes to the atmosphere at Langley henceforth, as long as this crowd is in charge, it's the triumph of the desk jockeys?
It's the trial. I'm not even the desk jockeys didn't come out all that well because, number one, Mike Morrell said the people who were closest to the crisis, the guys who are risking their lives every day, we're not going to believe them. And by the way, the analysts in Langley, the analysts in Washington, D.C., they got it totally wrong. So he threw everybody under the bus except Mike Morrell.
So a classic case of political survivability and basically a PR stunt to magnify the, quote, glory of one Mike Morrell.
Kind of like that. The bottom line is Mike Morrell, I think he has visions of coming back in a Hillary administration. One of the places that he will not be welcome is he will not be welcome at the CIA.
Well, one of the common threads here, you look at this and you talk about, Pete, the lack of respect paid for the folks who are actually there in theater, so to speak, in Benghazi in this instance. We were talking about the intelligence report as well. And one of the concerns from the left on that issue is what kind of message it sends to the Muslim world if we're doing these enhanced interrogation techniques. But meanwhile, the folks who favor that line of debate also are sometimes advocates for the use of drones, even though the president will change his tune a little bit. Still, they have used drones in a way, and that also sends a message. And many folks would say the use of drones has been far more, has caused a lot more backlash from the Muslim world than these enhanced interrogation techniques. Would you agree with that assessment, Pete?
I'll take one huge exception to what you said, John. This is not about sending a message to the Muslim world. This is about sending a message to our enemies. If you are an enemy of the United States, we will go to extraordinary measures to protect America, American citizens, and American property. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, that included enhanced interrogation techniques on 3 avowed jihadist terrorists. And this president, you're absolutely right. I mean, the left, they will attack those of us who supported enhanced interrogation techniques, but they have no problem with a president who will, take the drone program well beyond where President Bush ever was and fire hellfire missiles at groups of 10, 15, 20 suspected jihadis in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Yemen, and kill them, including using drones to kill Americans. And this was done by President Obama. He has used drones to target and kill Americans, according to press reports. Unbelievable. And the left believes that's fine, or they'll let the president off the hook for that, but they will, they still 10 years later, 13 years later, want to condemn Bush for programs that feed,
we hear you, Pete. We're going to have to leave it right there. The bottom line on the left, the same litany, blame Bush. Well, when we come back, elections overseas, specifically this weekend's election in Afghanistan, what's at stake? We'll talk about that next.